Today I've got Tim Woodbridge of WCG Investments, who started his career off as a nurse, did about 8 years as a nurse, and then transitioned to real estate. Now you go by the retired nurse. I love that name.
Yeah, thanks, dude. It's took a while to get here, and I'm very grateful for the nursing career that I had, and very grateful to not be in the nursing career anymore too.
Nice, grateful, and grateful you're not doing it. It's just like me in the Navy. I'm glad I went through it, but did not want to do that forever. So, what kind of nurse were you?
It was like telemetry, so like heart floor with a cardiac monitor, some step down, some float, some dialysis, a lot of different things. But yeah, it really was. It was a good career. It helped me, when I get a tenant call and say this is an emergency, and I'm like, bro, let me tell you about emergencies, okay? I don't think this is a true emergency. Is someone's heart like stopped? Because then yes, it's an emergency. But until then, let's take it slower and figure it out.
Nice. How did you deal with the stress of that kind of stuff? Because me, I mean, I'm not like squeamish. I certainly don't like needles going in my arm, but certain situations will stress me out. I cannot imagine somebody coming in with a true life or death situation, and that's just your daily norm. I mean, how do you learn to process all that?
I mean, you get used to it, and there's all sorts of unhealthy and healthy coping techniques and whatnot. But like, um, it's a lot of like after the fact of like dealing with how do I reconcile like this person just died under my hands and I was doing CPR. Like it kind of it becomes just a part of the job in some ways, but like also yeah, it's a lot of debriefing and like I don't know. When I think back on it, I mean, I know I had like super unhealthy coping strategies in a lot of ways. Um, and for better or for worse, I am glad to be out of that situation because it's a lot, bro. It's a lot. Like I don't want to, I don't know how else to say it other than like it's a lot. Like cheers to
Yeah,
all
the
the amazing
emotional.
nurses out there.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy about nurses too is they make a fraction of what doctors make, and they seem to do, at least from the perspective of a patient, they seem to do a lot more for you. Like the doctors show up and do something really particular that took years of training to get to that point. Like, but my wife and I, she just had a baby about a year ago, and we saw the doctor for maybe 20 minutes, and the rest of it was just nurses working their tails off to help us. I mean, it's crazy. It's an incredibly stressful job, and man, they see the part I couldn't get over is they have to see the worst in people because you're in the most pain you've ever been in. You're uncomfortable. You're not at your house, and you're short tempered. You're dealing with the worst of people, but you just constantly have to help them through it. It's got to take a special person to do that kind of job.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it takes a lot of dark senses of humor. I can
Yeah,
talk for a long time about nurses and what's said at the nursing station and just uh, a lot of dark sense of humor and a lot of yeah, that's just one of the coping strategies, like laughing stuff off and I mean when I like look back on being a nurse. There's a lot of bitching about this or that or whatever, and just like being very dissatisfied with a lot of things. It it's one of those things, man. I mean, I didn't realize it until like I was out of nursing that like, oh man, for like just part of the job, it just shit. It's just toxic in a lot of ways, It's like and it's just a part of everyday life or what was a part of everyday life for me and yeah it's something, man. There's definitely needs to be some kind of change in healthcare. I mean, a few years back, I think the nurse's name was Redonda Vaught or something like that, and she was working at a hospital in Tennessee, and she was working in the emergency department and probably overworked and doing too many things at once, and she overrode a med. They were giving a from what I read, like an MRI to an older lady or an older person. And, she was supposed to give her a med to help her like calm down. So she overrode because, in a hospital, it's like a lot of things have to be approved by the pharmacy. There are checks and balances, but you can override it. Um, so, like, she overrode, and instead of giving that med, she gave a similar sounding med that was a paralytic, and the patient ended up dying, which is horrible. It's horrible. But, I mean, people make mistakes when they're overworked, no matter what you're in. That's just a fact of nature. And so it was awful, but what was worse is that the hospital threw her under the bus, and this person, she was charged with had like criminal charges. And so it's crazy, man. I mean, when I started, hospitals would have your back and it'd be like, okay, yes, this is awful. Yes, we can all accept that. How do we do better next time? Now, like, when I hear stuff like that, it's like, yes, this is awful and it's all your fault and how dare you? And it's so weird, the trend. I mean, COVID hit and then nurses were heroes. And then after like the end of COVID being, the big thing it was like, oh, no, these nurses are bad again. And it's just a really weird trend in something.
Yeah, it seems like today corporations, which at the end of the day, most hospitals are a form of a corporation, and they are in self-preservation mode all the time, and they like to take the approach of like, hey, it was one bad apple, we're a great hospital. When a lot of times you look at it, it's like it's their
Bro,
fault, right? They're not hiring people, so they're putting all the blame on this one person who is a human, and they expect way too much. They probably did it right 999 times. They did something wrong, and unfortunately, in that field, it is life or death. So that's
yeah.
what they do. They can say, "Oh, it was this person's fault," and throw them under the bus. A lot of it just seems to be that's the way corporations are going today. Like they don't have people's backs, and that's why we see people hopping from career to career and field to field.
Hmm.
And it's we can get into real estate in a little bit, but I think that's why more people are wanting it because like, look, I need something tangible that I can count on. I can't trust that this corporation has my back. I don't care if I work there 30 years. They just don't care anymore.
If they can automate it and pay less, they'll do it. And you're totally right. Like the trend of like corporations and sticking with a job for years and years it's over. Like it does people worse to stick with a company for longer and longer. Every time I switched hospitals, I got a raise. And then remember, I switched hospitals, I got a raise. I switched back and I like got another raise. And so I was making more than people that I started with. Yeah, it's really interesting. It used to be very patient centric. Now it's very task centric. And you're 100% right. Like, for everyone who's like, oh, like I would love to like just pull back the veil of hospitals and show you like behind. Like people are people, there's systems and everything, and like physicians are people as well. Nurses are people. They make mistakes. No one knows everything, and everyone's doing the best to their ability. But man, like all those corporations that think they're all super shiny, it's like no, like bullshit. I call bullshit because I've seen behind it, and it's not like to blame anyone. I don't say it to like you know put blame on anything, just to call out what it is. It's like they're doing the best that they can, but it's not they're people make mistakes.
Right.
Rant over.
What was your before you got to that point? Because it's always people tend to leave careers on their when they get disgruntled or when they get fed up with things. But we all go into careers with really high expectations. So it takes a lot of work to become a nurse. What were your expectations of what the career would be like, and then what did you find out to be different that ultimately drove you to get into real estate?
Well, so when I got into nursing, it was like I thought that what a nurse makes is like I'll never need to make more. And they do. They make good money, but I didn't understand about myself is that I am happiest when I'm working towards something. It's not like the
Mm.
destination. I worked, I, went to college and everything, was the first in my family to get a bachelor's degree. Uh, so yeah, I like had a great time working, and then I did the job and I was like, okay, like it's good, but not as good as I thought, like my expenses went up as my income went up. Um, and it was just like I was excited learning, but like there was more of a lull into like, okay, well, this is it, kind of is how I felt. And, with that, like I definitely, utilize drugs and alcohol. I got like heavier into alcohol, and then that, came into, heavier into using other things as well. And it's just, yeah, a bad habit. I know myself in that it's like, so I've been in recovery for 4.5 years. And
Wow,
like,
congrats.
thanks. It has been an amazing experience. And I know, I've got tools and people to reach out to if I ever like feel like I want to go down that path. But really, I know myself, like I've learned over the past 4.5 years about myself and about like, okay, what makes me happy and what's gonna kind of like cause triggers and stuff like that. And I like working towards things. It's more exciting than like the destination. And it's not like, it's definitely deeper rooted than all of that stuff. But going back to nursing, it's okay. I got to the peak, and like, okay, this is it, sort of thing. I remember listening to an article or listening to an interview with Jason Siegel, who did what is Superbad, I believe. He had written Superbad, and that was like his pinnacle, right? He's and like, okay, like yeah, we did it. We got the movie done, and we're there. And then he got like heavy into alcoholism, so it's like the same kind of, well, like what's next, and then just like left squandering. Um, it's a very, I mean, so that's, you know roundabout stories and whatnot, but that was what it left me. I got to that pinnacle, quote unquote, and like this is it. Today, with a help of a mindset coach, I realized that there is no pinnacle. There's always going to be a next thing, and that's exciting to me. So it's not that I'm dissatisfied. I'm very happy. I really enjoy working on these things, but there's always a next thing. There's never a resting on my laurels sort of thing, and I'm excited about that kind of life.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about working for yourself. I just had breakfast with a guy today, same point. It seems like most people, if you're that type of person who's addicted to the next thing, it's not always greed. A lot of times it's just the goal orientation of most people. Like that's how I feel too. Like I want to get that next deal done, and once it's done, it's like whatever, let's get another one, right? And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not a question of greed because you don't see much of it. It's just like, hey, I want that next challenge. Um,
The
but
journey's
yeah, it's
exciting.
it's an interesting. It is exciting, yeah, and it's what takes a lot of time to perfect is how to be that way and not constantly be upset with where you are not yet. To be able to say, okay, what I've achieved at this point was my goal at some point. This is awesome, but I'm grateful, but I'm not satisfied. I want to keep working towards that next thing, which is how you see people go. Like Warren Buffett, for example, it's like, oh my gosh, like he's in his 90s. He's had enough money to be set for life for probably 5 decades, and he's just still working. It's because of what he found what he loves doing, and is that kind of how you feel about real estate now? Like you found something you like, you're good at, and you just, even if you made nothing, you would do something like it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm not one to like just sit back and do nothing. It's not fun for me. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to my partner Vinny Carius earlier, the C in WCG, and like we were discussing the gap and the gain, and just kind of talking about like how it's easy to be like, man, like I see this like, oh, I can't wait till I'm there, then I'll be happy sort of thing. But like you can do that, or you can look back and be like, oh my gosh, look how much I've gained. Look at where I was last year or 2 years ago or whatever, and look at the gain that you've made. And the fun thing to realize is you are at the same exact place either way. There's no difference. The only difference is in your gratitude, your personal gratitude versus like the longing that you feel. So it's all like mental and emotional game at that point. So it's like, oh man, like I am here, I'm doing the things that I get to do, that I enjoy doing. I am super blessed and super grateful for the life I have and, satisfied where I am, but always moving forward to something new. And that's the most fun I've had living.
Nice. And is it the control now that you feel that's like really exciting about it? It's like, hey, whatever happens, I have myself to blame for it, for good or for bad. And I think for a lot of people, that's kind of what drives them away from their job. It's not really that, like, what really causes them to leave their job is usually not money. It's normally just like this realization that doesn't matter how hard you work, you get to a point, usually about a decade into your career, where you're not going to advance at the same rate you have the last 10 years, because in the beginning everybody's starting out from zero. A lot of people are just going to be lazy. Then you separate yourself as one of those hard workers, you advance to a certain point, but then that's it. You can't go any higher than that, any faster, for whatever reason. It might be a good old boys club, or just when I was in the military, it was just like hey, great, you made rank fast, well, you have to wait 3 years to the next one. That's like, well, what if I'm doing it's like there's just no way around it. And it that drives a lot of people out of it. And I've noticed that as a common trait between entrepreneurs. They just want to have control and know that if they work hard, they will see more from it. Simple as that.
Yeah, and the freedom to work on what excites me. And so
Yeah.
like yeah, I don't have a one-to-one like okay, if I put this work in, I'm going to get this money out. It's more like okay, a longer term vision. So like if I put this work in today, I know that will, set up the system for the business to grow and, that will just compound. So it is very Warren Buffett like in like, okay, let's lay the seeds, let's plant the seeds today, and then in the future, we'll be able to reap what we have sown, as it were. So like, let's do good today to do good today, not because I'm going to see a correlation, but I know for a fact that the the better I can be and the better, seeds I can plant, the better I can, leave the world in little ways. The crazy amount of blessing and like amazing things come to me. It's really really cool. And so yeah, it's very much I have a mindset of like, let me plant the seeds today for the trees that I may not get to enjoy, just to make the world a little bit better.
Yeah. And I can see why you pick mobile home parks. I have a very similar mindset, and they don't make a lot of money the day you get them, but it's one of those things you can look up in 50 years and not much is going to be different, which to me is super exciting. Like every deal I look at, I always look at it. How does this affect me? How would this affect my daughter? And it's crazy the amount of work you could do today when you zoom out on that far of a lens. Like it's crazy. It's you see how you kind of start building wealth that way. But when you reach the point where you said, "Hey, I am not going to continue this path of being a nurse until I retire. I'm going to do something else." What were the first steps that you took to work towards that?
So it was more my story was more okay, I'm a nurse, and unrelated to if I like it or not. Like I didn't have any idea of or real thoughts of getting out of nursing at the time. I was more like, oh, I saw Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've seen that book forever, and I'm in a season of my life where I'm reading a lot. Why don't I read that? And then I was like, oh, that's how people do it. And, assets, liabilities, these are new words in my early 30s. I should already know them, but whatever, I didn't. And so, yeah, okay, now I kind of unlock some secrets, and I just, like, I want to be rich. And so, he talks about buying real estate. And okay, so from there, I read more on real estate and I listened to Bigger Pockets a lot. And then, looked for how can I go into this? What strategy works for me? And then I heard Brandon talk to Frank Rolfe on the Bigger Pockets podcast, and I was like, oh, buying mobile home parks. That's so weird, but so cool. Like, for all the reasons that Frank really likes it, I like that too. And I like that it's a little bit weird, a little bit different. I'm a little bit weird and a little bit different in my own head, at least. I think probably everyone feels that a little bit. And so, yeah, I just kind of went for it with just the intention of like, this is going to make me a ton of money. And then over time, it has built into like, oh, this is also going to build a lot of money, like a lot of wealth for my friends as well. And so like everyone who has like come into the company who's like really good at their specific thing, I'm like, oh, wow. Now like this can build me a lot of money, them a lot of money. This can, and we can create, build up a business around this idea. And also we can treat tenants with like treat them very well, put some money into the parks, especially those old beat up trailer parks that no one does anything for, and make it a nicer place for them to live. Oh, now we can also like start syndicating and we can get really great returns and great tax write offs for investors. And it's just like, wow, like all of these things, I like it more and more and more for the benefit that it's providing, not just me, but building up something bigger than me. So it's really cool. But yeah, I definitely started with, man, this is going to get me rich.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I mean,
Nah,
that's what
not
we're
at
all,
all.
not all of us, but yeah, that's the American dream right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. So you started reading about real estate. Did you look into any other asset classes before you ultimately decided that MHPs made the
I
most sense for you?
I looked at like wholesaling, single family wholesaling first, because I'm like, I don't have any money, like a lot of newbies say, right? I looked at that was probably the only other one that I really looked at. I didn't really look at commercial or apartments. I didn't know that you could really buy apartments when I bought my first mobile home park. Um, it was kind of like when I heard Frank talk about mobile home parks, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you could buy that. And like, oh, okay, you can. And this is, let's look into that. So yeah, it was the first thing I went into, and yeah, the first investment property I ever bought was my first mobile home park, which I still own.
How did that go? What were the details on that?
So found it on mobile home park store for sale by owner, 10 to 36 occupied, $125 lot rent. Um, a lot of relationship building with the seller, giving him a very low offer based on like Frank's, buy at a 10 cap sort of thing. And he was like, no, I can't do anything less than this other price. And then I ended up buying it for that price. And yeah, so a lot of like learning. I remember, we were talking about Grony earlier. I remember when, um, like in the first month or two, probably, um, there was like a big sewer issue, and I was like freaking out, like, what do I do? What do I do? And he's like, oh, you just call a plumber. And I was like, oh, okay, that's I don't know. I thought that was the end of the world. So thank you, Ryan Groney, for helping me with that, and being a good resource over the years. But yeah, so there's been some ups and downs in the park. Currently, I want to say we're at like 32 of 36 occupied. So did a lot of infill, a lot of like figuring that
Wow.
stuff out. Uh, and yeah, I mean, some weird water sewer issues and some like unsure if we even own the water pipes because it's like we own 36 individually deeded lots in like a 55 lot neighborhood. Kind of having attorneys work on it right now, so I don't know exactly what's going on. It's a little bit weird, but I mean overall, it's done us well and has been a really great stepping stone, like to learn a ton and like figure stuff out.
Yeah, and that's what's great about the first deal when you just get a super low basis. Like you're not going to know everything, even if you just spend a year just researching it. There's going to be things that come up that you're just like, I had no idea I had to do this. And if you buy a stabilized deal, that can really bite you in the butt because you might have not have left enough wiggle room in what you did. But I mean, $130 lot rent, it's a third full. That's a really good first deal for somebody because like, hey, if you're wrong, you've got a lot of runway to figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. It was never negative cash flowing. It was like it paid its bills right away. We didn't get any money for a while on it. Um, but yeah, it was great because it was definitely like, okay, let's figure this out, you know? Like I think if there's one thing that has allowed me and now allowed us to continue to succeed, it's figuring stuff out. Because there's going to be those events that you're like, man, I have no idea, and it's like, but I can figure it out, and like, you know, being paralyzed by things and not moving forward is never the answer. So it's empowering, figuring something out that
Yeah.
was scary in the previously.
It's not rocket science either. That's like one of the interesting things I always come back to whenever I start going in one of those whirlwinds where I start getting stressed and just stress myself out. It's like, it's a mobile home park. It's the land underneath people's houses. I can figure this out. I've talked to people in other asset classes who are halfway through an apartment remodel and tariffs are doubling their prices of goods. And it's like, I
Oh,
don't know what I would do in that situation. I'm glad I'm not in that situation. Because a lot of mobile home park turnarounds, and I'd be curious to hear your takes on this, but a lot of it is really just operations.
hmm
Um,
hmm
a question I get all the time is like maybe not a question, but maybe something people bring up is that my capex budget's way too low. They're used to looking at flips or major remodels on, larger multifamily where you have to do a ton of work to justify getting the property value up. Mobile home parks, I mean, you do have some large capex items like roads or stuff sometimes, but a lot of times it's just we're going to manage this better, we're going to treat the tenants better, we're going to enforce the rules, and the value can start skyrocketing just from that alone. Or doing simple things like having a phone number. I can't tell you how many mobile home parks out there don't have a phone number. You want to get a hold of them? Good luck. It's impossible.
I, I think I remember seeing something that you posted on LinkedIn about that, or somewhere. Um, yeah, no, that's funny. Yeah, a lot of things. It's like run it like a business. Up here it's backwards, but it's from the Jamie Smith and the Trailer Cash book she wrote. We like to run our parks like a mom and pop shop and run our business like a Fortune 500 company. So it's really just treating everyone with respect and people like people. So that's, the mom and pop shop thing. But like in the back end, treating it like the business that it is instead of just you like, Matt, I own some real estate. Like, ha ha ha, people are just gonna pay me in mailbox money. It's like, no, dude. Like, step up your game, run it like a business, have a phone number, even if you're not answering, because I don't answer phones anymore. I used to. I used to answer every phone call, but now I got people in place. But yeah, run it like a business. Um, I like, I, you know, thinking back to my first park, I, I, I am grateful for all the pain that I had because it made me realize, like, okay, who can do this? Who can do this? Like, so I used to do everything. I used to do the books. I used to read the meters, like water meters manually. I used to do all this stuff. And then, I was at a meetup and someone said, "Oh, you need a bookkeeper. Get a VA bookkeeper." And so I still have the same VA bookkeeper, and that was a game changer. And then, like, okay, down the road, after having a couple other parks. Oh, you need a community manager. Oh, yeah, that's such a good idea. I need the community manager. And then, from there, I've I have, and now we have built out like the property management, in-house property management company, just to make sure that we are running it like the business that it needs to be.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing because with a mobile home park, there's so few moving parts. It's so tempting and easy to get started and just do it all yourself because there's not a whole lot that has to get done. But it starts becoming a thing as you get to that third park, fourth park, fifth park. that those little things add up. And I noticed the same thing. Right around the time I got to like 6, I was starting to notice that our management was not where it needed to be. And I knew a ton about real estate. I feel like I knew 90% about real estate. I knew what I know now about real estate, about 90% of it on that first deal. What's taken me from 5 to now almost 10 is not extra real estate knowledge, but like personal, like how do you hire somebody? How do you manage
Mm-hmm.
people? How do you
Mm-hmm.
delegate? Like that's what starts happening when you have to grow a portfolio past that, first 5 parks. It's really tough because you sit there and think like, man, what do I not know that these other guys with 50 parks know? Like I just don't see how that's possible. And then you're realizing you're thinking about the wrong stuff. Like you know
Mm.
what you need to know about parks. They're not rocket science. It's like how can I get better at managing people? Did you kind of notice the same thing? Because you're at what 16 parks now?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for the past year, it really has been building the business and like me taking a step back from things and letting go because I have partners who are way better at doing the things than I am. So it's yeah, working with other people, hiring more, and delegating more. Buy Back Your Time was a really great resource by Dan Martell in terms of kind of the what is it, hiring ladder I think he has, or replacement ladder he says, super super helpful. But yeah, it a lot of my time is now like high level stuff and like business planning stuff and less, calls related to specific assets. Because again, we have people way better than me. Um, and a lot of like, um, and I'm working on this. I'm trying to get better. So it's like Dan Martell's like, okay, if someone brings you a problem, tell them, give me 3 possibilities, 3 possible solutions, and then give me your what you think is best, and then kind of let people do it themselves. I have a natural tendency to want to control everything and be like, oh, do this. But like I'm doing myself and them a disservice by giving answers. They're smart. Everyone that I work with is smart, and is if they can just like have their brain space to figure it out, it'll likely be better than what I say because I'm like inundated with all these things. So sometimes I'm like, just do this, but like they'll probably sit with it longer than me and come up with something better. So it's definitely interesting where I am today versus where I was last year, and where it is. It's that focus on building the business, focus on big acquisitions, focus on big investor relations, like talking to whale investors or institutional whatever family offices, and then having systems set for a lot of retail investors, high net worth earning, doctors and stuff like that, business owners, having good systems for that. So it's not all like on me because exactly, I can't do everything. If it's all on me, I'm the bottleneck real quick. And so it was learning that and accepting it and like, how can we move forward without Tim getting in the way of things?
Yeah. What I started realizing because I went through the exact same problem, and we had a property manager. She was managing the whole portfolio basically, and it gets tricky because like, hey, on one park, city water means that the city fixes it. On another park, city water means that we fix it. Like it's not always obvious.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
as we started growing, we didn't really have things documented. We didn't have systems, and then we had some with rent to owns, we had some with park owned homes, we had some with tenant owned homes. It got confusing real quick, and I did not have good records at the time. And it got to the point where pretty much every issue turned into her calling me to get the answer, and then I talked to her. And it was just this like game where it's like I didn't know the context of what was going on. She would just call me with a question. She's like, hey, do we fix this? I'm like, I don't know. Like, and I was just permanently frustrated. So I never gave like good, reasonable things. I was just like, just do it. Just do it. I don't care. Just do it.
Yeah.
And over, like, it was not her fault looking back. It was me. I did not set her up for success. I did not have the level of detail I needed to because it crept up on me pretty quick. Like on the first one, I could do it without, I knew everything by hand, like just in my head. But the problem is I brought people on and just had the expectations that they knew that too, and they don't. And it just becomes impossible to grow at a certain point because, like you said, you become the bottleneck really, really, really quick. Even if it's something simple of like, hey, hey, just check with me before you do this. Okay, well maybe I'm gone, maybe I'm out traveling for the first couple of days, and now that septic tank that needed to get pumped, now it's overflowing, and now it's a crisis, and well now they can't get a hold of me. Like it's you have to the other thing I've learned, you have to be willing to accept the fact that other people are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Because honestly they make way fewer mistakes than you do, like when you don't know the full context. Like for anybody in that stage of growing their portfolio where it's like, okay, you can't do it all and grow, right? Now you have to just accept the fact that you think you're going to get everything right, but you're probably not going to understand the full situation to the point where you just have to let somebody else make the decision and trust them and check in on them. Like check in to say,
Yeah.
hey, why'd you
Yeah.
make this decision? Okay. That's the big thing I told them. Like just keep notes and like tell me why you made a decision. And if it's wrong, that's fine. We'll come back to it. But make the decision and then let me know what you did. And then we'll tweak that over time. But you don't need my approval first, because then you just tie people's hands up. They can't actually operate in their role.
Yeah. I like I think what Layla Hermosi said, in terms of, it's like she demonstrates, documents, and then delegates, I believe is what she says. So you're not just like letting someone run. You're like, okay, like here's what it is. You write this down and like document you, and then then from there, then you delegate. But like even then, your main role is supporting this person. So it's not just like, okay, you take care of that shit. I don't ever have to think of it again. Ha ha ha. Thank you. It's more like, okay, how's it going? How are you? How, like, really getting people centric and like taking care of your people. Also, another thing, like, I have realized I'm good at like two things. And like everyone else on my team is much better at all the other things that I used to think that I was needed for. So like running a park, running the day to day, and like going heavy in asset management, I'm not strong at that, bro. Like the people on my team are so much better. My partner
Yeah.
Matthias, who you should have on this show too, he is
Okay.
like he was the COO of his company before he quit to pursue mobile home parks full time. And like he's so good at like EOS and making sure things are organized really well. And for the longest time, I'm like, oh, I need to do it, but he's so much better at it than I am. So instead of, okay, I need to do this, it's just like, okay, he's doing it. I will support him in any way that he needs it, but I will also like accept that he's better at this than I am. So I'll take a super back seat, and taking a back seat and being on less of those calls lets me do what I'm really good at, which is, figuring out really big deals. Because the bigger I get, the I'm not excited by little deals anymore. That's just a fact. So like, you know, figuring out how can we take down a 10 million or 15 or whatever $20 million deals, which is very big to us. So like that's what I'm good at, and then like having high level conversations with either institutional investors, um, and or uh, just different people, different potential like co-GP capital raisers, stuff like that. Um, those are my highest and best, and then other than that, just building the brand and doing. Right now, it's just me doing, hey, this is blah blah blah. Hey, I'm Tim. Here's this video that I'm posting. we are working. I have hired some people to work on like better branding, and from there, like also like coming up with a better strategy. That's not just like me. Whether or not it's changes. I mean, it may not. It may just be like, yeah, like keep doing it yourself because at least like an important thing of the business is to get like us out there. We're very transparent. We don't bullshit. We're who we are. Good and bad. Here's how it is. Here's some of the bad of this one investment. Here's the good of this investment. Like we can talk about it and we don't hide anything. So like those three things are kind of what I'm focusing on, and I'm letting go. And again, I'm not just letting go completely. I'm like supporting people on other things. So I'm like higher level like deals, higher level capital, and then brand building. So those are the three things that I can do, and that like probably no one else can do. Um, Everything else, I can just like hold it loosely in my hand and just again support my team for those things. I don't I I always heard I'm working myself out of a job, and I was like, that's crazy. And now I get it. So it's funny how that is. The more you do stuff, the more like things that you have read that I have read in the past, like the more I'm like, oh, I'm understanding that now.
Yeah, it's a weird mindset shift you have to make because what got you to where you're at is usually not going to take you to where you got to go. And especially with real estate, it's really interesting because a lot of people talk and a lot of the books out there and the educational content, when you really boil it down, it's like it's sort of a lead generation for somebody of some sort. So there's not a whole lot of stuff about like, hey, what does it look like to go from your first deal to your fifth to your 10th to your 100th? And really each step of that, you're really in a different business. Like you're like on your first deal, you're really just bootstrapping, you're learning everything. And then
Hmm.
I remember looking at people with 10 properties. I'm like, how in the heck do they do that? Like, where are they coming up with this money? Like, are they just hitting home runs and 1031ing into the perfect next thing? It's like, well, no, they're just in a different business. They're in
Hmm.
a private
Hmm.
equity business at that point. They're raising capital. And
Hmm.
I spent so much time just putting all of everything I had into this, thinking that's how you got it done, and just having no clue. And then, okay, that's a different business. And then you start raising money, and it's so hard to get people to commit 50,000 or 100,000 or whatever it is. You're just like, how do these people raise $10 million? Like, I just don't get it. Well, they're not in the capital raising business. They're in the marketing business. Their whole day is in front of a camera, getting themselves out there, talking about what they do. It's just, and like you look back and you're like, I don't even think I'm in real estate anymore. It's like what I'm doing is not what it was when I started. Like I thought I was just going to get really good at finding deals and I was just going to be in my truck all the time. And but it's just not. Like as you go into these different stages, it's different businesses you have to learn, which I think is exciting because I'm not the type of person to want to just do the same thing over and over and over. It's like what we were originally talking about, like that next challenge for me. Dude, marketing is the weirdest thing in the world. Like, I would much rather live in a cabin and just do deals all day if somebody brought them to me and I had the money to do it. But that's just not the
Hmm.
reality. Like, I
Hmm.
have to meet people. So this is the part of the business I have to learn. And it's an odd thing, but it's a challenge, right? I
Hmm.
could just view it as saying, "Oh, I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to do it my way." Okay, I'll go back to working a job at some
Yeah.
point if that's what I do, right? I have to learn how to adapt and take on things you don't want to do as a challenge.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a ton of real estate investors who don't do that, and that's fine. You know, it's totally fine. I think you and I are on the same page where it's like, okay, we understand that if we really didn't want to, we could, but to really get to that next level, to get, continue moving forward, which, we're excited about, we got to do the new things. We got to do the things, treat it. So, like, yeah, exactly like you're saying. So, building the business is really okay. What's the org chart? Well, we got, you know, CEO. Matthias is a COO. And then we have a CFO, and then Vinny is the CIO, so like Chief Investment Officer. And then, like, okay, who do we serve? Primarily, who do we serve? Because When I was just buying parks, it was like, oh well, I'm serving tenants. And now it's like, okay, yes, we serve tenants and we make the parks better, but our primary person that we serve is our investor. So like it makes it a lot easier because it's like, oh, all my videos I'm speaking to that avatar investor, right? So it's either it's most of the time it's your $500,000 a year accredited investor who doesn't have the time nor the desire to want to move into real estate, and who wants us to like give them a concierge service where you give us 50,000, we can give you 100,000 over 5 years with cash flow and with appreciation. And on top of that, we give you a ton of depreciation in year one through cost segregation studies. So it makes it easier for me to really think about. It's like, okay, we got marketing, branding and marketing, and then sales, quote unquote, which is talking to investors and seeing if we're the right fit for them and if they're the right fit for us. And then from there, we already have operations. Matthias is killing it, and the rest of the team with operations. And then again, the financing component, so our CFO. So you got your main parts of the business, your marketing, sales, operations, and finance. It's like, oh wow, how did this happen? Okay, like over time with need, who can we find to really fill that void, that need? And then just as we're working, like now we're more direct about building a business. But originally, last year when Matthias and I partnered on our first deal, it wasn't there. But now it's like, oh yeah, let's do this. Let's make this into something amazing. I also want to shout out like Action Academy. I know, Brian, you owe me, like Venmo me money. So like I love their community, and you were talking about there's no groups that are like, okay, how do you create this business? Like there's a million groups that are like, this is how you can buy a deal, but there's nothing really like, create a business behind it. And Brian and the Action Academy people are putting together kind of like an owners club thing where it's just like that. It's like, okay, you bought your first deal, now what? And like, here's how you can make a business around it. So I'm excited to be part of that, and whatever part I don't know everything that they're thinking of. I am the mobile home park guy in Action Academy, so I'm there to help in whatever way. But that's exciting to me too. Sharing all the interesting stuff I've learned over the past year or so.
That sounds like a really interesting group. So it's the idea of it is that it's geared towards that exact thing I mentioned, where it's like, hey, you've just done one. You think this is a real estate game. You are no longer in the real estate business. You own a business. That's kind of like the focus on like making people realize that and how to actually grow that.
Yeah, and I definitely gotta shout out Brian Lubin. He's amazing at like casting this big vision. And so like Action Academy right now is, and I imagine it would stay like this, but like, so the core of it is get people out of their W-2, through real estate or business acquisition, whatever. And then from there, he's created the community. There's a ton of people who are leaving their W-2. And then it's like, okay, well, how do we continue to serve those people? How do we, like, what's the next step? And so, he's like, hey, let's do this community, like inside the community, or whatever. I don't know how it's going to be structured. But it's like, let's do a similar community where we continue to serve people who bought that deal and who want to scale it up. So like whether it's, again, real estate or like whatever asset class, let's scale this into a big, big, big business.
Yeah, it's an interest. It definitely sounds like an underserved need because, like I said, a lot of what gets taught about real estate is just how to do it with your money. And quite frankly, like most people out there don't make enough, or if they do make enough, they don't have enough time to do it. And so most people kind of have to pick two sides. Like I was at E4 in the Navy when I started making offers. Like I didn't have two pennies to scrape together. Like I had to figure out how to do it another way. But there's not a lot of information out there about that because who makes money when you do that, really, right? And then there's a lot of people who, it's what's interesting to me about real estate when people, if people hear about a new company like, oh, AI's, dude, let me try to find a company with stock in AI. And that's where people naturally go, like, let me invest in this. With when it comes to real estate, people hear about the parameters of real estate and you think, let me go buy one myself. It's like, imagine if you said, like, if you were telling a doctor, like, yeah, there's this company, Coca-Cola, that makes really good, soft drinks, blah, blah, blah. Imagine if they just went and said, okay, well, let me go make my own soft drink company. It's like, that's not
Yeah.
what you need to do, but like, that's what most people do in real estate. And they get started with a single family house. Like, I see it all the time in Denver. Like, people are like, I want to get cash flow, I want to get real estate. And it's like, okay, so you just bought a 4-bedroom house in Denver where your mortgage is more than your rent? Like, it doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. But there's just not a lot of good information out there about, like, how can you invest in this the same way you do with stocks, which is, I mean, you and I both do syndications. I know we're both huge fans of them. But have you noticed the same kind of thing that, like, you kind of have to reframe people's minds sometime that, like, you can be passive in real estate too. And statistically, you're probably going to do better if you just take that route than you try to go and do it all yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we were talking to someone who may or may not invest with us. And she's like, okay, like, why don't you take the acquisition fee and put it back into the deal? And I was like, because we're professionals and we do this for a living. Like, because this is how we get paid. What do you mean? Um, like, are you taking what you're making from your W-2 and putting it into the business, like, stock? No, likely not. You're probably using some of it to live off of. And so, like, that's part of how we live. And it's like, I get the question, and like, I can think back to my first deal. I I didn't take anything on that. And I put a lot of money after closing into the deal. So I get it. I get that mindset, but we have grown past it. It's like, this is how, because we underwrote this deal with all these things in place. Like, the first, the North Star metric we're looking for is 2x equity multiple for investors over 5 years. But everything else, like us getting paid, acquisition fee, asset management fee, stuff like that, that's built into that model. So, us putting our money back into the deal, that's not going to increase what our investors get. That's not going to have any, like, real difference other than making it so we're a little bit pissy, like, doing all this work for no money. And you don't want your GPs to be a little bit pissy and underpaid. You want them to figure out a way to get you great returns while also getting great returns themselves, while making money while doing the work. No one likes to work for free.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that because my first 6 deals was my and partner's money. Like, we were putting it in, we were equal owners. We were not raising money from anybody. And I did that to a point, and I was a big fan of Grant Cardone, like, go broke buying real estate. Let me tell you, I lived that to the fullest extent of what the word broke means, to where I
Same.
was
Yeah.
I was selling vehicles to get a deal closed, right? And that's when I came to the realization, this is not smart. I don't have the backing to do this, so I've got to start raising money. For me, the idea of just getting to do a deal and not having to invest money in it and still get a cut was awesome. I was like, man, this is incredible. You mean I don't have to put in like tens of thousands of dollars to this is great. And my attorney was kind of telling me, it's like, hey, you should charge an acquisitions fee to make sure that you can cover all the cost of running this because you don't realize it yet, but it's going to be expensive. And I felt so weird about it. I was like, there's
Mm-hmm.
no way I can't do that. The very first investor I talked to had a huge tech company he sold. He's bought real estate all over the place, and I had very low property management fees, very low asset. Like, I was trying to just, like, say, like, hey, I need to do something just to cover my costs, but this is it. And he actually turned me down because of that. He says, you're not charging enough to do this. I've seen this happen a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't see anything. You as the operator don't see anything for 5 years. You give up on it. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was his reason why, and it totally changed my mind of, like, wow, he's literally not doing it because I'm not paying myself enough. But it's true. Like, and a lot of people look at that, nobody would work for free. And at the end of the day, syndicators are working. you want them to make enough money. You know, and obviously you don't want them just rich off the fees. That could go south too. But on mobile
Yeah.
home parks, like the size you and I do, you're not getting rich off those fees. They really are just covering the expenses of running the business and some to live off of.
Mm-hmm.
But that's important because at the end of the day, everybody wins together. Like
Mm-hmm.
if the property does well and you're motivated for it to do well, everybody's going to win. And that's really what it's about, right? Everybody's got to win for anybody to win.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly right. Some people are not the right investors for us. Is another thing I'm learning. So like, there's definitely been people who are like, man, you seem like a nice person, but I don't think we're on the same wavelength. I don't think that we're a good fit. Anytime I'm working with someone, and not often, but every once in a while, I'll talk to someone who's like, uh, you know, you need to lose so I can win, sort of thing. I'm like, oh man, I hear you, but we're totally not a good fit. I don't think you should invest in this one. And like, you know, let's move on and just be friendly. But we're not on the same wavelength. Um, the way we
Yeah.
structure things is we get the deals to make sure that everyone's winning. And so like when I hear, oh, like this is too much, your fees are too much, or stuff like that, it's like I hear you, I hear what you're saying, but exactly, how you brought up that one guy saying he didn't want to work with you because trust me, like give me some money so I give a shit about this property. I've done the work for long-term equity thing, and it in my head it was great, and then 2 years in, I'm like, what am I doing? Like this, and it's like even if you're not like really just like walking away, you're still like, if you don't give a damn, then like you're not going to be putting everything into a deal, all the energy that sometimes it takes. And that's not a good place to be in. So yeah, I'm like, look, y'all, let us, don't nickel and dime us with fees because the the way that you're going to win is when we win. Trust me on that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, but I get it, right? Because I was a broker for a while, and I did see some deals come across my desk where I could just look at this and be like, I don't know how these guys are going to make money on this deal. And then these big groups they're buying it, and then you look into it, and it's like, well, they're getting a $300,000 acquisitions fee, and it's
Yeah,
5 years from
yeah,
now, it's a problem for somebody. Like that happens. I get it. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
and I've gotten that question too of like, well, what skin do you have in the game? My answer always that there's one person on the planet signing for the loan on that. It's me, like
Yeah,
nobody
yeah,
else. And that is skin in the game enough. Like that is a real risk. And I think that what most people understand is like once people start syndicating, not putting their first off, a lot of the people who say they're putting money into a deal, they're raising the money that they're putting into the deal, that they are putting into the deal.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
No,
it's
I
it's
get
it's
it.
a weird thing that happens, but someone will say, "Oh, we're investing alongside you in this one," and it's like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, well, they're their entity, but they raise money for their entity." Like that's a little secret thing that happens behind the scenes. I was shocked when I heard that but it is what it is. Yeah, at the end of the day, you got to find somebody who's aligned with what you're going to do, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a quick thing. If if Warren Buffett and I didn't get along, I'd probably still invest in Berkshire Hathaway, right? Syndications, real estate deals, they're much smaller, right? And they're much more dependent on one person doing what they're supposed to, including investors. Investors can screw up deals if they make a big fuss out of things or want to start lawsuits over nothing. That happens, right? Not often, but it does happen. And so it's important for everybody to kind of be on the same page and want things for the same reasons, right? It's not enough to, and I've learned that not just with investors, but with partnerships. You can't just say, oh, we both want to invest in mobile home parks, let's partner. That's not enough, right? Like when I was first getting started, I wanted it so bad. And my partner had already had like a dozen. So it was a good partnership because I had all this energy I wanted to put into it, but I didn't have the experience. He had the experience, and it went well. But a couple deals in, it's like, okay, now I have the experience, and I want this really bad still. And he was at a point where he didn't, and it was like, okay, this might not make sense because I'm pushing this so hard and so, he might not, right? So we both want mobile home parks. We both want the cash flow, but there's just like things ebb and flow and things change, right? And so it's really important to kind of figure out why somebody wants to do something. Same thing with me. Like to say somebody wants to invest in real estate, that's not enough to understand if like a mobile home park is a good fit. Like if you want a lot of people want like a quick flip, like a quick profit. It's like there's a lot of others. I mean, yes, you could do that with a mobile home park, but I mean, shoot, they're not making any more of these things. Like they're really drying up. Like it's much better to take time and take a long approach, in my opinion, to really get the most out of these. If you want to flip, there's tens of thousands of houses you can go flip. Like that's what you should do with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
is your guys' strategy when you buy mobile home parks most of the time? Right? You say you're doubling in 5 years. That's about like a 15% IRR. So are you writing like underwriting these things to buy them, get them up in value, and then sell them, or are you guys refinancing?
Yeah, so yeah, it's 2x equity multiple in 5 years. IRR is like 15 to 19, uh, 18 to 22 AAR, depending. Every deal is a little bit different, but 2x equity multiple is easy for me to understand. It's simplified, double someone's money in 5 years. Um, so everything's on a 5-year plan, unless it's more like at year 4, let's discuss this deal. Do we love it? Can we see ourselves running it for another 5 years? Can we refi, get investors all their money out plus? And do we, let's take a poll. Let's talk with all the LPs and see, gauge their interest. Because, yeah, we are the managing members of the GP, we control it, but we take our investors, that like we take what they have to say very, very, very seriously. Again, these are the people that we serve. Um, so it's like, okay, if we get a majority of LPs who want to continue to hold, refi, get their cash back, continue to hold it, then we will do that. But with that being said, it's easy to digest 5 years. Like, yeah, the business plan is to sell or refi at year 5. And, worst comes to worst, we're selling it. We're not doing any refis, or we'll do a refi, but we don't underwrite refis because that juices IRRs, and it's an unfair advantage. I think it's like this deal has to be good. It has to stand on its own merit, with or without a refi. Um, so yeah, we get in there, we do some, different value add strategies. We get people their returns because we know how to run mobile home parks and we're good at it.
Right. What do you mean by the IRR juices it? Are you talking about like a refinance? Or no, I'm sorry, the refinance juices the IRR. Like a refinance partway before selling, like
Mm-hmm.
reduces their capital in it, so the sale. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so IRR is all about your return based on a time bound. If say there's two scenarios, both of them I'm taking $100,000 and doubling it into $200,000. So the actual dollar amount doesn't change in both scenarios. But like I do a refi on year 2 and return your capital, your IRR is going to go up a lot more, high 20s or so, depending on the deal, because you have a quicker return of capital versus having to wait. So, I mean, yes, it is a higher IRR, but I don't think that's a fair metric. Um, Especially, I mean, you can't, I don't know where interest rates are going to be in 2 years. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's going to be better," and it's like, maybe, bro, maybe. But like, I don't
It
want to
might be
say,
worse.
yeah, yeah. Hey, interest rates are at 12 now, and my hand is forced to refi because I promised this stupid IRR. So like, no, let's leave it out. If it works, it's a cherry on top. If it doesn't work, well, the deal still works really well without that, and we can sell it year 5.
Yeah, it's really important to not be optimistic. I mean, you don't want to be pessimistic to like the extent that like a bank underwrites it, where I can't tell you how many times a bank like will come back to me on a loan and be like, "Well, what if your occupancy drops to 70 and it's like at 100?" I'm like, "Okay, I've just never seen that happen. I don't know what would happen. Like, it would obviously be really bad. We wouldn't make that much money, but
Yeah.
you have to be realistic." And I found that I got much better at underwriting once I started actually bringing investors onto the deals, because the first one I basically just looked at it as a broker. I'm like, oh, this is a good basis. I was just shooting from the hip, like let's do it.
Uh, yeah.
Didn't
Yeah, like
understand
brokers
like
do.
what's my IRR. Yeah, so
Love,
that's how I
much
bought my
love.
first couple.
Yeah, much love to all the brokers. But yeah, it's just a
Yeah,
different way of looking at it.
it is, and it really made me like it's really interesting once you start like getting into like really high level underwriting. You really can make the numbers look ridiculous
Mm,
in certain ways, but you're not really, right.
hmm.
Like I've seen it a lot. What happens, like especially when brokers will underwrite something, they'll say, "Oh, your expenses are going to stay at the same, but your revenue is going to go up as you raise the rents. Your expense ratio when you sell it's 20%, so your cap on a cap rate it's this." So it's like, yeah, but people don't buy it because it's a 20%. Like I get it, like it might be
Yeah,
a twenty
yeah.
percent expense ratio, but nobody's paying that for it. Like so, there's just the numbers are really easy to juice. I feel like, and what it ultimately comes down is like, are you getting it for a pretty good price? Is it below replacement cost? And if you go that route and you just expect the deal to be a base hit, you'll have a lot more success than always expecting home runs, because that's when you strike out a lot of the times. Not to get too corny with the baseball references, but it tends to be the
Well,
case.
and it's true though. It's true. Like we're doing really, really well with a lot of base hits. And I mean, really, we're putting a ton of offers out and hearing no all the time. I'm good at hearing no and then like following up. But it's a lot easier with our North Star being the 2x equity multiple because it makes my life so much easier. I don't care if it's a good deal anymore, really. I care about what's the business plan, what's the exit cap, and like overall, I care about what are the investor returns on a pretty conservative scale. Not overly conservative. We've done this enough. We know like likely what's going to happen, and then go slightly more conservative than that. Um, and then yeah, just make that offer based on the investor returns. So it's no longer, well, Tim's just lowballing. It's like, well, Tim's lowballing, but he has a reason to lowball now.
Yeah, and what's interesting is like in 3-4 years ago, it was mostly a bidding war for deals, which sucks. It's a really easy time to get into real estate because you can look at it now and say this works well. It's a lot
Mm,
harder for a deal to pencil right now, but they're much better deals. Like because there's just not as many people buying in the basis. Like what you paid for a property will always be what you paid for it. Your rate is probably going to change at least every 5 years, most of the time in commercial
yeah,
real estate.
yeah.
And so I think now's a really, really good time to buy. Like, yes, like there's a lot of deals where the brokers will send it to me and they'll just be like, yeah, when you sell, it'll be at a 7 cap. It's like, I'm not
Maybe.
confident we're selling at a 7 cap because interest rates are at 8. Like, so explain to me who's buying that, right? Which, like, I get it. A couple of years ago, that was the norm. It's not the norm now. And that's like, well, I always take the approach of like, I'm going to buy this. We're going to refinance at some point, in 3 to 6 years. And who knows after that? Because it's really hard to predict. Like another thing in terms of like juicing the IRR that you talked about that I think a lot of people wanting to be passive investors need to look out for is if somebody sells it quickly, their IRR is going to be a lot higher. But that's like if you had a park you bought for 1 million, you could sell for 1.25 million. If you did that over 5 years, your IRR is going to be somewhere around that range. If you sell it in 12 months, your IRR is going to look ridiculous,
Hmm.
but that's not necessarily like a better deal. Like it may seem that way. It may. I mean, obviously, if you can do that and then turn it into something else, that's great. But like that's another common thing I see that people will do that will make it look a lot better than it is. Where it's like kind of the industry standards to compare apples to apples is go off of 5 years. Even if you plan in like 2 years, realistically, you could sell it. Like that might make an okay or a bad deal look good when it's really not.
Yeah, yeah. And there are so many things you can do to, manipulate a spreadsheet to make something look better than reality. And every, everyone's guessing. Everyone's doing their best guess. So I don't want to like lean and say there's anything nefarious as much
Right.
as I it's like like sure I could sell this in 1 year and I have a 28, 32, 35, whatever stupid number IRR. But you have all this money. What are you going to do with that? So you have to
Yeah.
go and look for another offering where you can place that too. So like, you know, I feel like people aren't looking at the total picture of things. It's like, okay, like now I've got to go hustle and place this capital in something else. And maybe I'm paying, you know, depreciation recapture. I don't know. There's all these like different aspects more than just a metric like that. You know, it's very interesting.
Opportunity, and I struggled that with that for a while because when I looked at one deal at a time, I could never. Like, if you take the idea of, hey, I'm going to buy this deal, the same park. Let's say in one scenario you're going to refinance it and then just hold it indefinitely, versus you're going to sell it at the end of 5 years. No matter what, your IRR is going to be substantially higher if you sell it at the end of 5 years. Just it's a fact. Like it's just you don't all that capital you leave in the deal in the form of equity never gets realized in those numbers. It's not going to be as high.
Hmm.
So it's tempted. Like you would think, why the heck would people ever refinance and hold things? Like, well, there's so many other factors you have to vary. Where's the market when you sell it, right? Like you said, the depreciation recapture, that's a huge thing. Like if you sell it and you end up paying 30 something percent of that sales price and you could refinance for 65% and still keep it, well, that might be better. The other part I like about it is like mobile home parks are one of the only asset classes that I feel like that you can actually refinance and operate forever because you don't have the problem of like if you look at apartment deals, the main thing they do to boost values like these massive renovations. Okay, well year 5 or year 7, you're probably going to have to do that again because it's probably out of date in some factor. So now you got to come up with all this cash. That's why you don't see people do that. You see them sell every 7 or so years. With a
Hmm.
mobile home
Hmm.
park, you can actually own it forever and you can budget like, hey, every 20 years we're going to have to redo the roads or do like a major facelift, but you can refinance at that point because you'll have so much equity. You don't have to come out of
Hmm.
pocket. That is one of the interesting things about them. So to me, like if you're going to just always go with the 5 year play, like that's one of the coolest things about them. And what's great about that, you don't have to risk all of the equity you've built every time you want to go do a new deal because ultimately every new deal is unknown. And if you want to take out some of it, leave the equity in a deal that you already understand and know is comfortable. And people may not understand that if they're not the ones operating it. They might just see the numbers and think, what's the difference? Well, I have some parks that I like them both equally when I bought them. There's one of them that I hate, and there's one that I absolutely love. And you don't really know that until you've operated a few years and you kind of just learn about it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, Warren Buffett and Sam Zell both said that they will never sell their trailer parks, right, or their mobile home parks. And you
Yeah.
know, Sam Zell, rest in peace. But both people way smarter than me, way wiser than me, who know investing so much better than me. So I kind of lean on smarter people with more experience than me. And I mean, in that way, like for there's a lot of different ways I'm bullish on mobile home parks, but like that alone tells me like okay, I'm in the right field, I'm in the right asset, and I just need to buy as many of these as I can and run them really well like a business and just get really really good at serving our investors and serving our tenants, and everything else will fall into place. And like that's kind of been my thesis, and it's been true, man. It's been very true.
Boring, but man, they are predictable. Like that's when it comes to boring, it's funny because like most people get into real estate because their goals they want like enough cash flow to live off of. Do you want that to be in something exciting? Exciting probably beats up and down. It's like I would much rather like my dream is just a big check every single month. I don't need it to be exciting. I'll go do exciting things with that money. And that's one of the interesting things I see. Like in Denver, I meet a lot of people who do Airbnbs or what I would call sexier assets, you know, co-living or like all these things with all these moving parts. And I can never hold a conversation with them because they lose interest because they're like, "What do? You just rent the land?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's it." Like, well,
Yeah.
what do you do to like add value? It's like, well, I don't know. We just keep renting the land, but it works. Like it's predictable. Like there's not a whole lot to talk. I'm surprised we've talked as long as we have, but like it's very little about mobile home parks because it's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, people have a house, we own the land under it, they pay us for that. That's it. Like it's
Yeah.
not a whole lot. Like there's
Yeah.
not
What else?
seasons. There's not, there's not busy times. We don't have people leave in droves. We don't have people flood it in droves. It just kind of is what it is.
Yeah. That's what one of the many things I love about them. I love the low, slow, unsexy. So like I remember, and this was, when I was relatively newer in mobile home parks, people were like, I remember feeling a little offended by people being like, "Oh, why?" And I'd be like, "Well, it's unsexy, but that cash flow ain't unsexy." Ha ha ha. And I'm just like, like, you understand it or you don't. Like that, I don't need to prove this asset class to you. You're not into it, then maybe, find something else that excites you. But like, I'm excited about the low and slow and providing affordable housing to people and providing great returns to our investors. What more do I need?
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting because I feel like a lot of it kind of comes back to that control thing. People want to look at, which I get. Like I want to control a deal. And there is a lot you can control with a mobile home park on the front end to make it more valuable. But it's not something that you can like get creative on. Like people can. Like I talked to people who are talking about how they flip houses and like how the backsplash is going to add value. And to me, that's just like Chinese. I'm like,
It's
how does that
exhausting.
like add to the NOI? Like I just it probably does, and they do well at that. But for me, I'm simple minded, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I used to be big into stocks and options and all that kind of stuff, and it was all just guessing. Ultimately, at least the way I was doing it was like, this might go up because so and so is going to go on Joe Rogan's podcast and smoke weed,
Mm,
and now Tesla's going to drop, so I'm going to short it before. Weird stuff like that. Whereas like a mobile home park, okay, this is what they're charging, this is what they're spending over the next 5 years. We're going to end up charging this and spending this, which will be more, and that'll make it more valuable. That's kind of a fact. Like it's not really. I mean, there is some variability in that, but not a whole lot. With a high degree of accuracy, that's going to be somewhat right. It's not going to go much better than that. Like I'm not going to 10x and take a mobile home park public and do anything
you
crazy like
should. No,
that.
you
But it's
should
just
do
going to
that.
be. Maybe I will. Maybe you'll see me on the stock exchange with
Yeah, yeah,
Jones
yeah,
Mobile Home Park going public. But
yeah.
it's just going to do what you expect it to, which to me is the biggest thing. Like if your end goal is I want to have enough cash flow to live off of, you need to set realistic expectations. And I think you guys have a fantastic one. 2x multiple over 5 years. Just do a simple calculation of, hey, I'm going to double the money I have every 5 years. It does not take you very long to have a lot of money and enough money to live off of. It really doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah. And so really we keep it simple because it's easy to understand, but like these spreadsheets that Matthias has not created because I got it from someone else, but has like edited and like adjusted to really fit our needs. There's like a lot of back end work, um, a lot of back end work, and a lot of in depth work that goes into our spreadsheets and pro formas and whatnot. Um, but yeah, yeah, put some money in, double it in 5 years, and keep putting it in, and save a ton on taxes. I don't know if you're into low and slow, man. We can do low and slow super well.
Yeah, it's a good. The taxes one is exciting because with the big beautiful bill, which by the way is the best name you could ever think of for a bill, because normally they have like these really nefarious names. I just think that is hilarious. But man, what that would
That's
do,
marketing
I
right
get.
there. Yeah,
It is fuck the big. How could you be against the big beautiful bill? But that depreciation thing is something that it took me so long to wrap my head around. And I have a finance background. Like I minored in finance. I kind of got it. But I'll be honest. I think it was my fourth mobile home park I owned before I realized I could depreciate anything. I just remember thinking it's land. I can't depreciate that. That's like, you know,
I
real
thought the
estate
same.
101.
Hmm.
And then somebody explained to me, like, no, they're actually one of the best assets for that. And I had Eden Markowitz on the podcast, which if anybody's looking for
He does all my
cost
stuff.
segregations,
Yeah,
yeah, they do fantastic jobs. But he explained it, and it's just fascinating. And it's one of those things like explaining to investors. It's really hard to explain why. And like what I have found the most successful thing is I'm not saying that this makes sense logically. I am telling you that this is what the IRS says. The
Yeah.
IRS says that typically 70% of a park's value is depreciable in less than 15 years and under this current tax code and what might be under the big beautiful deal year one. I don't think in real world that's right. Like I would think an apartment has much more depreciation, but that's not the way it works when you actually get down to brass tacks. And I'm not going to complain about it, but like,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
the way it goes.
We kill it versus apartments for sure. Way more depreciation. But yeah, first of all, Eden, you need to Venmo both me and Jeff because we just, shouted out how amazing you are. But yeah, he's the one who told me about it. I met him at Seco a few years back, and he was like, "Yeah, it's like the best depreciation because it's all 5-15 year land improvements." And like, it's definitely over my head too. I'm not going to pretend like it's not above my head, but that's what I do. I pay smarter people to help me with things and then take that cost seg study, give it a CPA. The CPA says, "Oh, look, you have no taxes," or like, "Look, here's, your paper loss that you can give to all of your LPs." And so, yeah, it's just, I know, like, it's not it's not something that we aim for in terms of our underwriting. It's not something that it's like, oh, this is a double your money because you're saving. No, that savings is like
Yeah.
a big, big cherry on top. It's just
Yeah.
an added super bonus. How about you save a ton of money year one and also double that original money?
A lot of times, especially it's lessening now that we're at 40% of the 100% for the depreciation, the bonus depreciation. I'm pretty confident we'll go back to 100 when this thing passes. For a lot of investors, like that is one of the biggest things because that actually doesn't hit their account like a distribution or a sale would, but it's actual money that they save and put in their pocket in the very first year, which is so interesting for like anybody who's listening. Like, what the heck are they talking about? You can buy a mobile home park for $1 million. It can be worth 2 million right after you buy it, and you can go tell the bank it's worth 2 million, and they'll give you a new loan. But yet the same exact deal at the same exact time, you can go tell the IRS it's only worth 300,000 now because you lost $700,000 of value, and that's literally how it pretty much breaks out every time. And it's just the craziest thing. Now you don't until you sell it, and obviously now it's like, okay, we have sold it for 2 million, so clearly it wasn't. Now you have to
Recapture.
pay all those taxes you saved back, but up until that point, that's how that works, which is just again, logically, when you say it like that, that makes no sense. Like that's completely wild. But that's just the other thing is somebody explained to me. It's like the people in Congress own a lot of real estate, which is
Hmm.
why this exists.
I
Not
don't make the rules; I play by them.
yeah,
So it's
exactly. So explain to me
yeah,
why
and
Nancy Pelosi is
even
worth 200 million.
yeah, yeah. Even with the 40%, depreciation. I mean, we got on the Sumter deal we just closed 40 units, which, by the way, we're still like finishing up the raise for capex and whatnot. If anyone's interested in putting some money in, hit me up. Um, but yeah, so we're like 70 to 80 cents for every dollar invested of year one depreciation. Again, even with only 40%. So who knows what it's going to go up to if it goes up to 100%. I can't count on that. I can only say this is what it would be today based on the rules of today, and it's still pretty damn good. It's actually very good.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's. I mean, like we're all obviously hopeful that it'll go to that. We'll see what it ends up doing, but it's just such an interesting thing. I mean, it's like again going back to what we talked about. Like real estate is not what you think it is. Like that. I thought it was all about cash flow, all this stuff, which it is. But for a lot of the people that get to that point where they have enough money, who are like typically people investing like, are at that point, one of their biggest concerns is how is this going to save me money on taxes because
Mm-hmm.
they make
Mm-hmm.
enough, they don't keep enough. And this
Mm-hmm.
is a fantastic way to do that, especially given the fact that it really doesn't matter what your leverage is. Like that's the part that Eden explained to me that I just could not wrap my head around. I'm like, explain to me how people have more depreciation than they invested. How is that possible? Well, doesn't matter what your loan was, right? If you put 300,000 down on that same example on like $1 million property, you write off 700,000, assuming it's at 100%.
Mm-hmm.
You get $700,000 worth of depreciation, even though you only put in 300. That's just the way it works. It's
Yeah,
fascinating.
it's magic. I still I,
Yeah,
I still think that there's part of it that's magic, even though logically I know it's not. It's I like a little whimsy in my life, so I'll keep calling it
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh shoot.
Well, Tim, so you guys are really kind of growing your business now. You guys have any deals that you mentioned that one in Sumter that you're working on raising for? It's already closed, so
Hmm.
that's
Good deal.
a pretty
Yeah.
safe method. Is there any other ones that you're working on right now that people could hit you up
Hmm.
about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. But really, if you're interested, hit me up. We'll send you like our free ebook, which is called, I forget the full name of it, but it's like the boring asset that has made people millions. So when you said the boring asset, exactly, exactly. That's what it
That's
is,
why I
man.
said it. I saw your book before this. Yeah, I saw the
Yes,
book
yes,
before it. I'm like, that
perfect.
sums it up.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
boring is exciting. That's my opinion.
yeah, I same. But if you want to hear, like, get on our list to see what deals we're working on, like that's the best way to do it. And we do like a lot of my time with the branding and whatnot is also working with our marketing team and just kind of guiding, like, okay, how can we provide more value to people? How can we do the Hormozy thing, which is provide all the freaking value and hide nothing, and then like from there attract people. And so yeah, any way we can help people, we give away free resources and everything. You know, there's a ton of stuff. We're down to help in any way we can.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. Well, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you if they'd like to do that?
So you could email me at tim at wcginvestments.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, tim.woodbridge. Follow our page, WCG Investments. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, all the places. And yeah, I'm sure, we'll hopefully get the link to the book in show notes or something. But yeah,
Yeah, we can do
I'm,
that.
easy to approach. Just hit me up, hit any one of us up, and we'll get to you.
Sounds good. Well, Tim, I appreciate you taking the time. It looks like we've been talking for over an hour and a half about a very boring subject, so it always fascinates me. But it was great getting to hear your story, getting to know you. So, again, thank you so much for being a guest.
Jeff, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate your time today.
Yes, sir.